Hello and welcome to 3 Inning Fan, the podcast with me, Kelley Franco. On the socials at 3 Inning Fan, I hope you're following me. On this show, I aim to give you your baseball news quickly and efficiently with just a little bit of entertainment built in, references to forgotten oldies, fine-tasting food, and cultural minutia from the 70s and 80s are always welcome. So if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or watching on YouTube, anytime you want to give a like, listen, download, follow, or subscribe, only if you think I've earned it, of course, it's very much appreciated as I build this small business. Just what might seem like a little click to you is a big thing for me. So we're going to spend some time outside the New York baseball bubble today. I was going to talk for the whole show about the trade deadline, but then something suddenly came up. If anyone can nail that 1970s sitcom reference, you get 2 points. Tim Trainer, I know you're already typing the answer. I know you. So anyway, we had some news in MLB, so we're going to cover that first, and I'll get you caught up on that, and then we will go to some trade deadline talk. In the category of, we just can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. MLB announced that the Dodgers and the Cubs will be meeting on March 18th and 19th in the Tokyo Dome. You know what that means. The Dodgers' Yamamoto and Ohtani will be playing the Cubs' Imanaga and Seiya Suzuki. It's a great move by MLB, in my opinion. I know not everyone is a fan of the global growth of the game, but I am. And sometimes we criticize MLB, but we also have to give credit when it's due. So let's do that. This is going to be some opening series. I had a tremendous time this year when I went to London for the London series. And I have to admit, I am a little intrigued by Japan. I've never been there before. In the category of won't you stay just a little bit longer? The Rays have gotten an important step in their stadium approval to stay in St. Pete. The St. Petersburg City Council approved the Rays agreement to build a $1.3 billion ballpark. The ballpark would replace Tropicana Field and be just adjacent to it. It needs one more approval from the Pinellas County Commission, which it is expected to get. So the Rays are expected to contribute about $700 million, with the balance coming from the city and the county. The Rays are expected to sign a 30-year lease for the new stadium, keeping them in St. Pete for the foreseeable future. And the stadium will be surrounded by hotels, a concert venue, residences, a museum, offices, because that's the way it's done now. It's not just a stadium, it's a Disney World. That's the way the Braves have done it in Atlanta. I'd really like to see that. I guess it's called the Battery. And I understand it's what the Orioles would like to do in Baltimore. So the times they are a-changin' when it comes to baseball ballparks. The A's and the Rays are putting bows on their new stadium deals, which means MLB will likely turn its attention to expansion in the coming years. You've probably heard that MLB wants to add 2 new teams, and I think that Commissioner Manfred would like to get the ball rolling on this before his term ends in 2029. Several cities are competing. I think Nashville is a shoo-in. They have a tremendous engine of organization behind it. And it's quite a venue, and they are going to build in the music aspect of Nashville, I think, right into the proposed baseball team, and I think that's going to be a winner. So for the runners-up, I think we should be looking at Portland or Salt Lake City. Those are just my guesses now, and this is a great topic for the off-season when we don't have any other baseball to talk about, but now we do have some other baseball to talk about, so let's get back to that. In the category of 2 weeks and you're an all-time legend, I think the games have gone much too far. All right, if anyone gets that, it's a gold star. That is a 1980s nugget. The 2028 Olympics are going to be in Los Angeles. Will there be baseball? There's been baseball in past Olympics, but not every year. This is how it's been. It was played like a gazillion years ago in the Olympics, but then more recently it was played in the Olympics from 1992 to 2008, and then it was dropped, and then it was revived in 2020. There's no baseball this year in Paris. I mean, I don't think they even have a baseball stadium. But it is expected to be part of the LA Olympics. So query. Could MLB players play in the Olympics in the summer during baseball season? This is going to be a topic you're going to want to keep your eyes out for. There was an article about it, about baseball and MLB players playing in it in The Athletic by one of my favorite writers, Evan Drellick. So you should take a look at that article if you'd like to. He writes a lot about the business of baseball and does a stellar job. So Evan wrote that Commissioner Manfred brought in Casey Wasserman, who is the powerful sports agent. He is the sports agency, entertainment agency, and he's also apparently the chairman of the LA Olympics, if that's the right title, but he is apparently the dude with the LA Olympics. And Manfred brought him in to talk to the owners about the possibility of MLB players participating in the 2028 Olympics in LA. And according to Drellick's piece, Manfred said Wasserman was persuasive. There's some discussion about how it could be done, and it would involve either reducing the normal 162-game season or maybe extending the playing calendar. Tony Clark, who's the head of the Players Union, said the union has no official position yet, but apparently Tony Clark likes the idea. And so, anyway, it's a good article, and I think you should go read it. And then I wonder, well, would this happen in the Olympics every summer Olympic year? No, is the answer. I doubt that because this year, I think in 2028 rather, it's a possibility because the games are in LA, so it would only involve domestic travel. And also, there's a baseball stadium there, as you may know. So it's a unique opportunity. And also, Casey Wasserman obviously has tremendous contacts in MLB, so he just may have the leverage to pull this off. So what do I think? At this point, I'm open to learning more about it. Although it's not exactly like the World Baseball Classic, there are certainly similarities, and there will be issues with everything from scheduling to injuries to extremely mundane but outrageously important issues like insurance for the ball players. But the game's growing, and my guess is this is the direction we're heading in. So if the owners decide, this is what I'm going to postulate here, if the owners decide that they can make money off this in some way, shape, or form, it's going to get done. I'm interested to hear what you have to think about that. If you want to weigh in on YouTube or X, I'd appreciate that. I'm forming my opinion, and I'm going to crowdsource a little bit on that. Okay, let's talk about the trade deadline because it's coming up just next week. Nothing happens in a vacuum. The trade deadline has changed so much since they enacted the expanded playoffs. It's fascinating as we deal with the impact of 12 teams actually making the postseason every year, 6 from each division. So we have more teams that are in the race, more teams that are on the bubble. That means more buyers, or at least more teams that will at least sit tight if they're not exactly buyers, and fewer sellers. And now we're hearing a new term I noticed this year: hybrid buyers and sellers. So you have some teams that might be working with a scalpel and not a hatchet. Last year, we saw the D-backs make it to the World Series as a wild card. And in 2022, we saw the Phillies make it to the postseason as a wild card and the regular season. They ended the regular season with 87 wins, and they got all the way to the World Series. It's pretty obvious that the playoffs are now a situation where you just need to get in and then you need to get hot. You have teams in the National League right now Reds, Giants, I'm looking at you, who have losing records but are still in the wild card hunt. You have to ask yourself if these teams are going to be buyers at the deadline. So, with the new playoff system, we conceivably have losing teams that are buyers or at least hybrid buy sellers. So, there's a lot of demand. This trade line is a seller's market. If a team has someone good to deal, they can get a lot of value for them. And the teams with starting pitching to sell can get a haul of prospects. The trade deadline encompasses such a huge expanse of information, and there's so many so-called insiders that try to tell you that they have information that nobody else has. I'm not going to do that. And I also don't want this show to be like a long, boring list of everybody who's on the trade market. So what I'm going to do is focus on the pitching that's available, because right now I think that is the most in-demand position, if you want to call it that. And I'm also going to talk about some of the most interesting buyers who could be out there. So for starters, let's start with Garrett Crochet, who we've mentioned in this podcast in the past couple of weeks. He is the White Sox ace. He has a 3.02 ERA, and he is on a team that is 27-73 this season. I don't know if they lost yesterday. That could have been 27-74, but they're bad. So if you have a 3.02 ERA on a team that is awful, you're really good. Crochet is under team control until 2026, through 2026. Now, here's what's interesting, I think. Crochet used to be a reliever. He was a reliever in 2020 and 2021. He missed all of 2022 due to Tommy John surgery, and he saw limited action in 2023. I've got to give a hat tip to my friends at Almost Cooperstown for that nugget, which I learned last week on their excellent podcast, that he used to be a reliever. So what's interesting about that is that we don't really know how many innings he has in him as a starter. So many teams want him at the trade deadline, but we don't really know how long he can go. Jack Flaherty of the Tigers is a rental at 3.13 ERA. He's had a recurring low back injury. Those are always trouble. But he has a 2.04 ERA in his last 7 games, so that's making him an appealing candidate. I think that he will be dealt. Jesus Luzardo, left-handed pitcher for the Marlins. The Marlins are definite sellers. But Jesus Luzardo is on the IL with back issues, and he's expected to return in August. So that's how much of a seller's market we're dealing with. Like, that injured guy? Yeah, let's all go fight over him. But that's the way it is now. Tyler Anderson of the LA Angels, left-handed pitcher, 2.97 ERA. The Angels really need to restock their farm system, so he should be a definite go. He's under contract until the end of the 2025 season, so he comes with the end of this year and a bonus season. Okay, the big fish. Tarek Skubal of the Tigers, Cy Young candidate. I don't know if he's going to be traded. What the Tigers keep saying is they'll only trade him if they're overwhelmed with an opportunity. So that's like when your neighbor puts their house on the market for some crazy, ridiculous sum of money, and they say, well, we're just trying it on. So the Tigers are trying it on, so we'll see what happens with him. Also in the category of should I stay or should I go, I'm looking at the Rangers. Are they buyers or sellers? If they sell, Max Scherzer and Nathan Eovaldi could be on the block. But like the Reds and the Giants, the Rangers are in that weird place. They're 46-52, but they're only 6 games back. The Blue Jays could deal starters Yusei Kikuchi, Chris Bassett, and Kevin Gausman. The big question for the Jays is whether they just do a fire sale and get rid of Vladdy Jr. and Bo Bichette too. That is going to be interesting to watch. So those are the pitchers who are out there. I would like to look at some of the interesting buyers out there. And the first one I want to talk about are the Orioles. Because just like that dude in the commercial who's the most interesting man in the world, the Orioles are the most interesting buyers in the world. Why? Because they have rich people problems. So let's talk about them for a few minutes. So you already know this. The Orioles have the best young talent in the league and the most of it. The latter point is important at the trade deadline because it means they have prospects to trade. They could very well win the AL East, but will likely be in a tight race with the Yankees and maybe Boston. Well, I hope the Yankees, but you never know with how they've been playing these days. Last year, the O's won 101 games, but then they fizzled out in the American League Division Series against the Rangers. They'll make the playoffs again this year, but they have got to build up their pitching if they want to win the pennant or the World Series. The O's need starting pitching. The Orioles got Corbin Burns over the offseason, and their rotation looked like it would be strong, but then they lost Kyle Bradish, John Means, and Tyler Wells to season-ending injuries. The Orioles need a frontline starter to pitch alongside Burns and Grayson Rodriguez. When they make the playoffs, they need someone for games 3 and 4. Right now, they have a patchwork system that's kind of working of Dean Kramer, Albert Suarez, Cade Povich, and Cole Irvin. But you don't want to trot out these guys in the playoffs, especially if you're serious about advancing. They have a stocked farm system, and that is the currency of the trade deadline. They should spend it. The O's would love to get the White Sox Garrett Crochet, and they are one of the few teams positioned to give up the top talent that this will require. Although if anyone could get Crochet and actually Skubal, who we'll talk about in a minute. I mean, the O's are the ones with the talent to do it. The O's will never part with Jackson Holliday, okay? But they would part with catching prospect Samuel Basallo, who's the number 2 catching prospect in MLB right now. But I don't think Basallo alone is enough. The Orioles may also have to send prospects second baseman Connor Norby and right-handed pitcher Chase McDermott. Kobe Mayo is another name you will hear about from the O's system, first and third baseman, good back, great arm, but I don't think he gets traded. Some people think the O's could make a run at the Tigers' Tarek Skubal. They could be in the position to make that overwhelming offer that the Tigers say they would accept. And if anyone could get him, the Orioles could. When it comes to prospects, the Orioles are the richest guy in town. And good for them. They played their cards right. They earned it. They worked the system. Hats off to their GM, Mike Elias. The Orioles also need bullpen help, and they will be all in on the bullpen guys, but we'll get to them in a minute. Other teams that will want in on starting pitching, the Red Sox, who many of us wrote off after a very quiet offseason, and then they lost Lucas Giolito, their one big acquisition of the offseason, lost him to injury. So the Red Sox, I think, will likely be buyers and trying to get some starters and a reliever. So there are more competition, more demand for good pitchers out there. And how about the Yankees? Remember when they were good? Me neither. That seems like a long time ago. The Yankees will be in on starters because their starters have been underperforming. Is that a polite way of saying it? That's what I'd say if I were British. They've been underperforming for the past 6 weeks or so, and Clark Schmidt has been injured, so things are ugly there right now. We were hoping that they would come out of the gate a little differently after the All-Star break. They came out with 1 win, and now they've had 2 losses in a row. We'll see what they do today. So, unfortunately, as I discussed last week, I don't think the Yankees farm system is well stocked, except for Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez, who had been regarded as untouchable for trades. However, Bob Nightingale is reporting that the Yankees are now willing to include Spencer Jones in a trade for Garrett Crochet or Tarek Skubal. And honestly, I don't see how they don't. It's not only about getting one of these guys for your own team, it's about keeping them away from the Orioles. The Mets have enough starting pitching, especially if Senga returns to full form, but they're going to be back in on a bullpen guy, so we'll talk about them in a minute. And the Dodgers, of course, will be in on the bidding for Crochet and perhaps reliever Michael Kopech, too. The Dodgers are known for doing blockbuster trades, and they always have money to spend. The Guardians need pitching like nobody's business, but not sure what they have to trade away. Their bullpen is good, but overtaxed, so they might need someone there too. Their offense has carried that team this season. Remember when the Astros were dead and we were all scared to say it out loud because we were going to jinx it? Well, somebody must have said it out loud because the Astros have made a comeback. We all secretly knew they would. They're actually tied for first with the Mariners now. I think they may even be like a percentage point ahead of them. So the AL West is, let's face it, kind of underwhelming at the moment. But hey, the winner of the AL West makes the playoffs like all the other division winners. So right now it's the Astros and the Mariners neck and neck. The Mariners have let go a very large lead in that division. So the Astros need pitching desperately. Unlike the Mariners, who have wonderful pitching, but just not a lot of offense. The Astros basically have a whole rotation on the IL. It's crazy. Hunter Brown has been doing a yeoman's work for the team. If you're an Astros fan, you're like, thank God for Hunter Brown. But Verlander, Christian Javier, Jose Urquidy, Luis Garcia, Lance McCullers Jr., and JP France are all injured. And Javier, Urquidy, and France are out for the year. Verlander and Garcia will be back soon, so that's a plus for them. But at this trade deadline, they will get a pitcher. I think their farm system is kind of meh, so I'm not sure what they're going to be able to get. So, Astros, it could be the sale rack for you. The Cardinals and the Brewers are in the playoff hunt and will be looking for starting pitching. So, it is just a seller's market on this starting pitching. These teams that have a good starting pitcher to get rid of are going to get a nice haul in prospects, and they are going to get their money's worth. Now, many of these teams, the Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, Orioles, all need bullpen help. Please be Myers. Please be Buyers Mets. Let's keep it interesting. Let's take a quick look at some of the relievers who might be on the trade block. Now, I called him the belle of the ball last week. Mason Miller, the belle of the ball. He's the A's closer who they say they won't trade. But do they think we were born yesterday? He's totally getting traded. His fastball averages 2,000 miles an hour. He has an injury history. The A's stink. They've given up on their Oakland fans. And they could actually get prospects to build a team that might win a game in front of the 7 or so fans they have room to seat in Sacramento next year. Yankees and Mets put together a package for him. Oh, then the 2 guys from the Rays that I covet. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's relievers. You can take the girl out of Catholic school, but you can't take the Catholic school out of the girl. So I covet these relievers. But I don't know if they're going to be available now because the Rays have come out of the gate good after the All-Star break. They have taken 2 out of 3 from the Yankees so far, and they're playing game 4 this afternoon. So now the Rays are kind of on the bubble. And this is the funny thing. As you get to the trade deadline, for these teams that are on the bubble, I wonder sometimes if their GMs sit there and pray that they either win all their games leading up to the trade deadline or lose all their games leading up to the trade deadline. So at least they have a clear roadmap as to what direction they should be going in. But anyway, so here are the relievers that I'm coveting on the Rays. We got Pete Fairbanks, the Rays closer, and I think he's under team control through 2025. I got to double check that, but I think that's the way that is. And their setup guy, Jason Adam, is under team control through 2026. So these 2 peas in a pod, Pete Fairbanks and Jason Adam, could make a couple of clubs very happy. If the Rays sell them. We don't know, but we'll find out by next week. And then Tanner Scott, the Marlins closer. He's got a 1.30 ERA. He's a rental. The Marlins are definite sellers, and so he'll be a hot ticket for all the contending clubs wanting bullpen help, which are many, and will bid up the price on him. So that's an overview of the pitching market to watch over the next week. The trade deadline is July 30th at 6 p.m. That's Tuesday of next week. So get the popcorn ready. Oh, did someone say popcorn? It must be time for our closer, What's Good to Eat While Watching the Ball Game. So what's good to eat while you're watching the ball game or catching up on trade deadline chatter from your couch or watching your favorite podcast on YouTube? Well, I think that since it's late July, you really need to get out there and buy some local corn on the cob, okay? It's humble, but it is just as delicious as it was when you were a kid and you ate it on the screened-in porch. And also, the thing about corn on the cob is it's kind of an event. Like, it's got to be shucked, and you got to go outside to do the shucking because you don't want all those little corn hairs all over the house. And so get out there, sit on the grass, and shuck it. That's a husband's job, at least in my house. It's my husband's job. Thank you, Tom. I hope you're listening and heard me thanking you for shucking the corn. So the Connecticut corn where I live is delicious right now, but I have got to give a nod to Jersey corn. That Jersey corn is really something. If you can get that, give that a whirl. I like my corn on the cob simply sprinkled with kosher salt, but if I'm feeling spicy, or if I'm spieling spicy, I have been known to douse it with Frank's Red Hot. Yes, Frank, I don't know who you are or what you look like, but I think I love you. Frank's Red Hot on corn on the cob leaves your lips flaming red without the aid of lip gloss. Oh no, I told Tom I hope he was listening a minute ago, and now I hope he wasn't listening. I hope he didn't hear that part about Frank. So, what do I enjoy with my corn on the cob? I would say any grilled meat or fish. Keep all the cooking outside so you don't heat up your kitchen on these hot days. And some tomatoes and basil fresh from the garden on the side. And I may even enjoy some tequila with this too. Oh, did somebody say tequila? It must be time to go. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.